All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into what is honestly a fascinating economic and psychological case study. We're going to look at what actually happens when you're trapped, literally trapped, in absolute luxury. It's a wild story about a pilot, a $2.5 million plane, and the hidden, often crippling realities of receiving a massive windfall.
The stakes here? Absolutely astronomical. I mean, we're talking about a $2.5 million world-class private jet. A pilot named Armando is handed the ultimate ultimatum: stay inside this exact aircraft for 100 straight days without ever touching the ground, and it's his to keep forever. Sounds like an absolute dream, right?
But seriously, ask yourself, could you truly handle that level of confinement? I mean, you gotta look past those shiny leather seats. This aircraft was built for travel. It was definitely not built for full-time living. There's no proper kitchen, no real bed, and absolutely nowhere to stretch your legs. It is essentially a multi-million-dollar tin can.
Section 1. Surviving the Early Days. Luxury Vehicle versus Basic Survival.
Right out of the gate, this challenge becomes a brutal physical endurance test. Armando's first few weeks are this stark contrast to the jet's massive price tag. I mean, his survival relies entirely on an airline cart stuffed with canned chicken and tuna, which he has to heat up in a tiny little microwave. And hygiene? Forget about it. There's no functional shower on board, so he's just living on wet wipes. Sleep is practically non-existent as he kind of contorts his body across these stiff passenger seats. But the ultimate torture? His captors actually take the jet on joyrides to Miami and Niagara Falls, so he gets to see the world from 4,000 feet, but he's still just a prisoner in a flying cage.
So it's really no surprise that by the end of the very first week, the glamour completely fades. He literally says the walls are starting to cave in, this is what prison is like. And this realization, it proves a really powerful psychological point that applies to so many areas of life. Golden handcuffs are still, at the end of the day, handcuffs. Being trapped inside a beautiful machine doesn't stop the walls from closing in on you.
Section 2. The Escalating Dilemmas. The High Cost of Winning.
So the core of this explainer is really about how the challenge evolves. Every 10 days, Armando faces these agonizing deal or no deal choices that are basically designed to break him. The very first one hits on day 10. He's offered a custom, fully functional shower extension attached right to the plane for the remaining 90 days. The alternative, coordinates to a runway holding $50,000 in cold, hard cash. Now, shockingly, despite not having bathed properly in over a week, he actually rejects basic human hygiene. He takes the cash. Now, to understand why he'd make such an extreme choice, we really have to look at the hidden math. This is the true cost of winning. You see, as a pilot, Armando knows that a $2.5 million jet is actually a massive financial liability. Just a few months of ownership means $8 grand for hangar storage, $10 grand for insurance, and $30 grand just for maintenance. The real-world takeaway here is that nothing is ever truly free. He desperately needs that $50,000 in cash just to afford his prize once he actually wins it.
And this survival strategy carries right into day 20. By now, his body is literally breaking down. He's offered a choice: a custom inflatable jet bed or coordinates to a global mystery crate. Knowing this is a marathon, not a sprint, he chooses endurance and takes the bed. But what he didn't know? He just rejected a crate containing a $250,000 Lamborghini. Ouch! But you know, when you're in that much physical agony, an air mattress is suddenly worth way more than a supercar.
Section 3. Battling the Isolation, the Psychological Toll.
So, with his physical pain finally solved by the bed, a new, far worse enemy emerges: his own mind. On day 30, a lifeline appears, but it comes with a hilarious catch. He can get a phone with unrestricted DoorDash access to order literally anything he wants, but he has to accept a wildly energetic, extremely annoying roommate for 24 hours. Starved for interaction and just desperate for real food, Armando happily accepts. And once he endures the roommate, he uses the app to transform this tin can into a home, ordering fresh pasta, a vacuum cleaner, and exercise bands.
But despite all those physical upgrades, the emotional anchor weighs incredibly heavy. By day 50, the isolation hits a boiling point. He's surprised with a visit from his wife and daughter right on the tarmac, and it is simultaneously uplifting and just agonizing. They literally picnic on the steps, but remember, he cannot touch the ground. He says, "I just want to cuddle with my wife. My weak point is my family." He's inches from the people he loves most, knowing he still has 50 long, lonely days ahead of him. So capitalizing on his growing claustrophobia, on day 60, the game makers offer him a massive outdoor platform attached to the jet store. It's got a gym, a trampoline, the whole shebang. It counts as part of the jet, so he wouldn't be breaking the rules. But the cost? Exactly $50,000. Yep, the very same money he painstakingly sacrificed a shower for back on day 10.
Section 4. The National Scavenger Hunt. 10 cities, 8 days.
Unable to handle the confinement any longer, he actually trades the money for his sanity. He buys the outdoor space. But this perfectly sets the stage for an intense logistics puzzle. Suddenly, this endurance test turns into a frantic, high-stakes race against time. On day 80, Armando is handed 10 cards with airport coordinates. He has to pilot the jet to every single city, order a specific DoorDash item right on the tarmac, and make it all the way back to North Carolina before day 90. If he succeeds, he wins his $50,000 in maintenance cash back.
And this part of the challenge brilliantly illustrates the chaotic reality of real-world aviation. I mean, things do not go smoothly. On day 81, a landing gear issue forces a super stressful overnight delay in Denver. Then, just days later, brutal weather diverts him to Idaho instead of Oregon, which totally eats away his precious time buffer. The pressure is just immense, but through sheer skill and some frantic gig economy navigation, he secures the final item in Tampa on day 88, getting his funds back literally in the nick of time.
Section 5. The Final Day 100 Choices. The Ultimate Ultimatum.
So Armando survives the scavenger hunt, battles the crushing loneliness, and finally reaches the finish line on day 100. He rightfully assumes he's just going to walk away with the deed to the jet, right? Well, there is one final twist waiting for him. He is hit with a massive, life-altering dilemma. He can step off the plane right now and take his prize as planned, or he can choose to stay trapped inside the jet for another 100 days, and the reward for doubling his confinement? A staggering $500,000 in pure cash.
Suddenly, that pilot math in his head fires up all over again. I mean, $500,000? That pays for the maintenance, the insurance, and the fuel to fly his family anywhere in the world forever. But as he quietly debates sacrificing another 3 months of his life for that kind of financial security, his wife and daughter are standing on the tarmac just feet away. They're screaming, "No, I've been through enough," begging him to say no and come home.
Hearing his family's pleas, Armando ultimately steps off the plane. He claims his hard-earned jet, secures the deed in his family's name, and immediately flies them all to Orlando to celebrate. It's honestly an incredible triumph of willpower. But it leaves us with one final thought as we wrap up this explainer. Now that you know the hidden, grueling costs of winning luxury and the intense psychological toll of isolation, if you were faced with that final offer, what would you have chosen?